Helen, thank you so much for joining me today as part of my wedding planning series, which is all about marquee weddings, at-home weddings. I'm really looking forward to chatting to you and getting to know a bit more about you. Do you want to let us know a bit more about your business, what led you to become a photographer?
So I'm Helen Warner. Helen Warner Photography is my business name, and I am a fine art. So that's my dog. Fine art wedding photographer, and I've been a photographer for about 10 years full time, and I've been shooting weddings for a little less than that. But I sort of came to weddings gradually, and when I started out doing photography, I was doing things like, I was doing a lot of theatre photography, so shooting productions and promotional images and things like that for theatres.
Okay.
And I did a lot of that for a long time, and then I gradually moved into weddings because a friend of mine asked me to do one, and I sort of thought, oh God, I don't know if I want to go down the wedding route. I thought they'd be really scary.
Yeah.
And then I was doing a theatre job, and someone said to me, well, I guess this is just like a wedding because you only get one shot. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been doing for years. It's exactly the same. Why didn't I think of it like that?
Yeah.
So that kind of got me over the nerves of it. And I did a couple for friends and found that I really, really enjoyed it. And it was a lot more challenging than the other type of photography I've been doing, which I've been doing for a while, and it's a bit samey. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. There's so much scope here, and it's just the most fun.
And what do you think makes you unique, and how would you describe your style to potential clients?
Okay. So fine art wedding photography it's a bit of a strange name. I don't really know where it came from, but essentially what makes a fine art wedding photographer is someone who is interested in creating a really beautiful image, and they're not necessarily going to be snapping every single thing that happens at a wedding. I mean, we do a lot of that, but when people say a reportage photographer, they are literally just like, photographing everything, and you're going to get a lot of images that aren't necessarily that flattering. Whereas fine art wedding photographers are more interested in natural light, and creating something that you're definitely going to want to put on the wall. That doesn't mean it has to be super posy. It's really just that we're very interested in light, and we will seek out ways of making the photo the most flattering. So for instance, that might be about taking portraits at certain times of day in certain lighting conditions. Again, it doesn't mean that we kind of control the wedding in any more capacity than any other type of photographer. It just means that we're looking for very specific things. And the client is most of the time completely unaware of that, but it's to maintain a kind of really consistent, light, airy, romantic, relaxed feel. Because to me, that's what weddings are, and they're quite unique in that way. They're very beautiful, special moments, and we kind of want to create timeless images that really reflect that. So that's my style. And I think in terms of what makes me unique is well, I guess going back to my background in the theatre, when I was doing that, I kind of my background, I didn't study photography at school or university. I actually studied literature. And I was really interested in stories, and I loved theatre. I've always loved performance and things that are kind of dramatic. And I thought that's what stories had to be. There had to be these really dramatic sets or lighting or whatever. And when I started to photograph weddings, I realised actually individual people's stories are really way more interesting and more individual. And I love that side of weddings. As a photographer, you're with people from the whole day, and I get to know people pretty well leading up to a wedding as well. But I think from my point of view, I'm just very interested in those people and telling their stories. I've always been a kind of an observer. I'm quite kind of, if there's a big party going on or something, I do a little bit of people watching. I love that.
I love people watching.
I'm really, really nosy, but actually that's kind of, I just find it fascinating.
I completely agree.
So that's, if I was to think about what would make me unique, it's really how I'm interested in other people.
Yeah.
And interested in showing what makes their day unique, what makes them special, and telling a story about them, really.
Yeah. Which leads on nicely to the next question, which is, what do you love most about your job? So would that be the people, or is it a bit more than that?
Yeah, I think so. It's the couple, but it's also so on a wedding day, their whole family and, you know, everyone that's special to them is there, and it's not something that you often experience in any other way. So I find it a huge privilege to see
definitely
that side of somebody, you know, that generally people's guards are down and they're just very honest and relaxed and love kind of sharing everything with everyone else. Do you know what I mean? Whereas often you'll get to meet people in a very particular narrow thing, whether it's professionally or they might be a girlfriend but you don't know their family or something like that. So I love that. I find it really moving. You know, I often get quite emotional at the speeches and things like that because it's so special. So that I love. There's also the side of you know, you get to work with a lot of creative people in the wedding industry, and that's really, really special. You know, you can create something really beautiful together. I'm always amazed at what florists can do, and wedding planners, you know, they put it all together to get this beautiful look, and stationers. You know, there's so much skill and talent in the wedding industry. So I feel really, really privileged to be part of that. And it is lovely to take photos of that as well. So which is often something that does kind of feed into fine art wedding photography. There is often a lot of attention paid to details. Someone will have decided, you know, that they want to have not theme as such, because that's quite outdated now. But you know, they'll if they are having a marquee wedding, for example, there's often a setting which is really special to them, and there might be flowers which kind of pull into that, or that might be echoed in the stationery or something like that. So being able to take photographs of that and create an album from what has been somebody's vision for their wedding and what's special to them, what they love, you know, the tastes and the kind of I don't know, their own personal style.
I think that's something that resonates really strongly with me, is that I'm all for, you know, I get to know my clients, and I really think it's important that bits of them are filtered throughout the day, and then to have someone like yourself capture that as a reminder of the day and their lifestyle and their family, all as it's just one beautiful cultural at the end of it.
Sometimes their cultural backgrounds can be kind of echoed through that. Exactly.
What is your top tip for couples who are looking for their wedding photographer?
I would say it's something that obviously most people getting married haven't done it before. They might not even ever been photographed before. And there's a huge range of wedding photographers out there. So I would say definitely the first thing to do would be to think about the different styles of wedding photographers there are. And as I think I've sort of touched on, this fine art wedding photography, which would be my field. There's reportage, there's kind of cinematic, they'll all have distinct looks and feels. Sometimes it comes down to the editing as well. So my images tend to be quite light and airy. There might be, I was going to say pastel tones, but it's a bit mixed. But there are people who kind of go for very sepia kind of images. So I would say definitely consider the different styles of photography. And then within that will really help you to narrow down the kind of supply you're looking for. And once you've decided on the style that you feel will work for your wedding and reflects your tastes, I would then chat to that photographer, get to know them personally, and I would ask to see a few full galleries from weddings that they've done, and really talk to them about your idea of your wedding day. Obviously your wedding planner would help with this a lot. But for instance, if you love the light and airy images and you're having a winter wedding, you would need to talk to the photographer about the best way of achieving that. There are things there are ways of doing it.
Yeah.
But again, a wedding planner super helpful with that, because it's about finding the right time of day to take the images. And if your wedding isn't until 3 o'clock in December, you might choose to have some portraits earlier in the day or something like that. So the more you can talk to them, and the more you can sort of really work towards the same aim of what you're hoping to achieve from your images, the better it will be.
Part of my sort of ethos for the Wildflower Wedding Planner is making sure that obviously everything looks really amazing, and there's a lot of, you know, stylish, thoughtful detail and things like that. But a big part of it for me is making sure that wherever the wedding is being held, whether that's a marquee in, you know, a parent's garden or a venue or in the middle of a field, is that it's got that homely, you know, that at home, really warming and inviting atmosphere about it. What is it about marquee weddings in that kind of situation that you think is really special?
I think the flexibility. So often they are, as you said, in home gardens, and that's so special because you know, it does have a more intimate feel. Yeah. And that is really lovely. And it might be, so I did one last summer that was in a actually the parents had a field. They were so excited to have it there, they even cut down some trees and, you know, things like that. So they reworked it to make it work beautifully for this wedding. But it meant that when we had the portraits, we could go to an area that was like this amazing view that was really special to that couple, somewhere that they would have been a lot, somewhere they'll keep on going for the rest of their lives, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah.
And you know, to have that as part of your wedding photos is really special. So there's the opportunity for that, I suppose. It's a really lovely way of also getting other people involved, making it special for everybody. And marquee weddings are so flexible, you know, whether or not they obviously sometimes they might be in a space that's not your own families. It could be, as you say, a field or joined onto a venue or something like that. It just means that you've got an additional space that you can create, that you can do whatever you want with. And they do feel summery. They have, you know, there is something really English about it, I think. Yeah, you know, really British about it. I don't know. It's that idea of having the kind of outside inside as well. Yeah. I love flowers. I love the natural world. It's, you know, so you can really do whatever you want. You know, it's
even if you're using, you know, a manor house as a backdrop or a big country estate, you can have that as a backdrop. But within that marquee that you create, it can be as you want, as you temporary.
Yeah, exactly. There's those amazing kind of glass marquees and things like that, or you know, you can have something super modern. And then that can be a space you use for some part of the day, and then you can use another space. So it just gives you so much more flexibility.
What do you think makes the biggest impact with a marquee wedding? So where should couples focus their time and their money when they're sort of planning? Because obviously you can do very minimal, or you can go all out.
I would say that the quality of the marquee is probably really key, because that can impact on every supplier. So you know, some are designed better than others, and there are some where it might let in too much draft or too much wind, and that can be a nightmare for the flowers. And then it's immediately distracting for everyone, which means the photos aren't as relaxed. So probably I'd say the quality of the marquee for sure. And then I would say, I mean, I'm always going to say flowers. I'm always going to say flowers because I love them so much, and they do have such an impact. It's personal preference for me, I suppose. That would probably be what I would say.
I guess you've already touched on this a little bit, but what extra considerations do you find with an at-home wedding? Would it be, you know, I guess if there's no sort of venue coordinator or things like that, do you find that you come across more issues?
Yeah, exactly. It's any wedding with a coordinator or planner is always more it runs smoother because of the timing.
Yeah.
And you know, planners, they're just way more aware of timings that you need to allow. So for instance, from a photographer's point of view, if you want to have lovely sunset photos,
yeah,
there's an hour leading up to sunset where you get this beautiful soft light. We call it golden hour.
yeah.
And unfortunately it can sometimes coincide with meal times.
Yes.
So there's always a bit of a conflict with the caterers.
Yeah.
Which is
the brides go away for their photos, and then they can come back to dessert.
Exactly. So if they're going away when caterers are trying to serve dinner, you know, it can just mess up timings.
Yeah.
And the thing with that is it's just all about thinking it through in advance and making sure that, you know, a photographer will tell you.
Yeah.
If the weather's nice and there's a lovely sunset, it would be brilliant to do some portraits at X time. Just run that by your planner, your caterers, and then usually everyone's fine.
Yeah.
So it's just having that extra person to kind of coordinate things and talk to each other.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, timings. Yeah.
Okay, I think that was, just checking my questions. I think we've covered everything. It was really lovely to speak to you, really insightful, and it's so lovely to hear more about you and your business. So thank you very much for joining us.